What is up guys, Fer here, and today we're going to be talking about Luffy's insane potential and sort of justifying how Luffy's growth so far has made some sense and how it isn't all BS as a lot of people think. Even though I don't agree with how Oda handles power-ups, especially for concepts like Haki. However, I do think there's few things that we've overlooked when it comes down to Haki, how Haki was shown pre-time skip in comparison to post-time skip, and how these two are kind of correlated to each other. I think Oda has had the idea for Haki ever since he introduced Smoker, who had a Logia Devil Fruit ability, and the only ways of hurting someone with a Logia is by having a direct counter ability, which only certain fruits have, like water and sand or lightning and rubber, and the other way being Haki, specifically Ornament Haki, unless Oda had something else planned, which is also a possibility, but I personally have my doubts about that. So Luffy's growth in the New World has been immense. It's only been a couple of months in the New World, and Luffy has already progressed so much when it comes to his combat ability that only Yonko commander level individuals can take him on, as well as being the only people that can take him to a high difficulty or an extreme difficulty fight. Anything less and that's easy game for Luffy. Right now I would consider Luffy to be one of the strongest characters in the series based on feats. I think it's reasonable to put Luffy in the top 20 strongest characters right now, till we get to see more from other characters. Now, one of the biggest growths we've seen in the series that Luffy's had is easily Luffy's battle against Rob Lucci, in which Luffy grew massively in strength. He essentially jumped a tier in a single arc. And then we had Luffy versus Katakuri, which made him gain an insane level of Haki, specifically the advanced level of observation. Still not the same as Katakuri, but very similar in terms of how they work. And this made him around first commander level, or that's what we assume, because he defeated a first commander level individuals. Now, just because you defeated someone who's stronger than you doesn't necessarily make you stronger than them, but it makes you at the very least close to them in combat ability. Now, Oda did state that the Straw Hats always grow after each arc, but certain arcs comes with bigger growths depending on who the end goal of that arc is. But in Luffy versus Katakuri, this was a very controversial fight first and foremost, because Luffy's growth was so massive that it was questioned by a lot of us in the community, myself included. I mean, it went from Luffy struggling with individuals like Cracker and Flamingo, who are around 3rd Yonko commander level, to him being able to fight 1st commander level to a standstill. And in Cracker and Flamingo's case, Luffy actually needed help to win these fights, Nami being his support against Cracker and Law being his help for his fight against Flamingo. Now, the way Luffy received help in these fights are different. In Cracker's case, that was Luffy's worst matchup, and in Flamingo's case, it was a 1v1 when he went Gear 4th, but Flamingo was injured from the Gamma Knife. Yes, he was stitching himself for the most part, but I'm pretty sure after getting hit from Luffy's attacks in Gear 4th, he had to keep reattaching himself, his organs specifically, and this was made pretty clear in the manga. Now with Katakuri, we knew he was obviously stronger than Luffy going into the fight, and arguably after the fight, but a lot of things favored Luffy in that fight, like how Katakuri couldn't hit Luffy even though he could see into the future, but a lot of this was due to Katakuri's persona. One of the biggest things we can use to justify this is that Katakuri grew interested in Luffy and gave him that extra bit of leniency to see what he was truly capable of, and we know this was the case because he smiled when he learned that Luffy escaped. So that was something that he's never experienced before, or it's been a while since he's had something like that. People need to realize that someone like Katakuri, who is stated to be undefeated for a very long time, I think when he finally met someone who didn't want to back down or be defeated, they wanted to see more from that person. They wanted to see what this person was truly capable of, and we saw that he gave Luffy time to transform into Snake Man, even though he could have easily stopped his transformation. And this is precisely why Luffy asked him if he would allow him to transform, because Luffy knew he wouldn't be able to transform if Katakuri didn't want him to. Again, that showed that Katakuri wanted to see more from Luffy. So it was clear as day that even though Katakuri was stronger, there was a lot of factors that went into Luffy winning that battle. The Marianda, Luffy using Brûlé to escape, and Katakuri letting Luffy transform. But when it comes to Luffy's growth, I feel like it can be justified in some sense, even though I think it was a very big boost. Like, obtaining Katakuri level observation in 10 hours is pretty insane when you think about it. For all we know, Luffy might be one of the only few individuals in One Piece world who has this level of observation, even amongst top tiers. Now, even Rayleigh kind of hinted that he didn't have the power to see into the future, so this was massive, but it wasn't the first time. I still view Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd in the same light, but I think that was done better, right? Now you must be asking yourself, how is it possible for Luffy to grow this much? I personally think that this all ties back to pre-time skip, and this will all make sense when I'm done. Now let's go all the way back to Jai when Blackbeard commented on Luffy's Haki. Now this was what he said, and this was in reference to Luffy's bounty. Blackbeard basically said that he knew Luffy's bounty was too small or too low judging from the level of his Haki. Again, this is probably the century type of observation that allows one to see how strong a person is when it comes to their will. And this was the first instance that it was made clear that while we did know that Luffy didn't know how to use Haki, it got to the point that Blackbeard was able to recognize it. Now let's go back to what Rayleigh says about Haki. Only in the extreme conditions of battle will one's Haki truly bloom or grow. The more Luffy was in a tough battle that could have resulted in his death, his Haki was growing even in the pre-time skip, even though he didn't know how to use Haki per se. Now Luffy versus Crocodile, Luffy essentially was at death's door 3 or 4 times during that fight. He then met Blackbeard at Jaya, who made comments on his Haki. Then Luffy versus Rob Lucci happened, which was an immense growth for Luffy because Enies Lobby was pretty much an arc where everything that goes against Luffy's ideals were brought in front of him. We also had Luffy versus Moria, which was also an extreme difficulty fight, and that was also a battle that he grew from. Magellan versus Luffy, even though he lost that battle, the 10 hours that he spent recovering from Magellan's poison, that definitely had an effect on Luffy's mental ability. We have to remember that Ivankov stated that the pain Luffy was going through was death-like, but again, his will refused to give out. While it wasn't a physical battle, that was a battle of will. Like, how badly did Luffy want to survive? Even Ivankov stated that if his will gave out, he would have most likely died. And there's a saying that goes like this: what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In other words, I think Luffy grew from that, not in terms of his physical ability, but in terms of how stronger his Haki was from all the pain that he experienced for that long. In other words, he came out stronger than he was before. Now, after Blackbeard and Luffy had their scuffle at Impel Down, Blackbeard now made a comment stating that Luffy's Haki has grown much stronger ever since the last time they met at Jaya, indicating that since he last met Luffy, he's grown much stronger not only in his physical abilities, but also in terms of Haki, as Blackbeard was able to notice the difference. And this growth is probably due to all the intense battle and moments Luffy's been in prior arcs, even coming close to dying several times. So his Haki was growing, but he didn't know how to use it well in terms of observation, armament, and conquerors. And then we move on to the post-time skip. So all that experience that Luffy gained from the pre-time skip is now showing its true colors because of Rayleigh's training. I usually like comparing it to Nen, whereas when Kilo and Gon had their Nen nodes awakened, it was overflowing because they had so much talent. It's kind of the same thing with Luffy, where all the growth that he had pre-time skip piled up in his body, and when it was finally released via Rayleigh's training, everything came out with flying colors, and him learning Haki was probably really quick as well. So Rayleigh had taught him how to allocate the Haki that was stored during the pre-time skip into the forms of observation and armament, which makes more sense because his Haki in Gear 4 seems to be almost advanced, and that was something that he created during the 2-year time skip. So all this stockpiled growth that Luffy had, and then you have Luffy's natural talent. That's probably why Luffy's growth has been so massive in the New World. So essentially what I'm saying is that in terms of Luffy's growth when it comes to Haki, it didn't start when Rayleigh trained him during the time skip, but it started ever since his first battle. Rayleigh's training made it so he could channel all that Haki in its right forms: observation, armaments, and conquerors respectively. Now I feel like Haki doesn't get enough credit, but I think Oda is very subtle about these types of things, and it's not as apparent, so you have to go back and kind of reread One Piece to kind of get a clearer picture of what's actually going on. But I think observation, armament, and conquerors are just one part of the overall scheme of Haki. Now obviously Oda isn't exactly the best when it comes to explaining Haki in the same sense that Nen was explained, even though we're about 800 chapters in the manga right now. I think we might get some exposition about Haki when it comes to Shanks' crew, given that his crew surrounds that idea. But I think there are subtle things that Oda has implemented here and there that relates to Haki, things that were even shown in the pre-time skip. It's only just recently that we learned about Ryuo, which was something Zoro did unknowingly during his fight against Das Bones, the ability to cut things that you want to cut. So there's definitely more things about Haki that we don't know about yet, and hopefully Oda can expand more on it. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you're new here. Do you agree? Do you disagree? If so, comment down below what you guys think. But it is fair, guys, and I will see you guys later. Peace.